before we send Brett and David Wilcox on their last 60-mile run. I'm so excited that you guys have made your trek across the United States. Last night when I was thinking about what you're doing, I really feel that you are the modern Johnny Seed of the United States today. And I'm so proud of what you're accomplishing. Thank you for taking your time to run across the United States of America to increase the awareness of genetically modified organisms in our food supply. It's a very important topic, and I think we need to create more awareness, which you are doing by passing out the seed packets and having people plant row by row in the United States today. And I think it's just phenomenal. They are going to start out today doing their last track, and they're going to end up in Ocean City, New Jersey. And we are very proud to be setting you off. And Brett has a few words that he wants to talk about. And we're here with the Liberty Bell near us. And I think that that's one thing that's really important is this is about our liberty and our choice and our right to know what is happening on our grocery store shelves. And I can't think of a better place to kick you off on doing your last 60 miles here in your transcontinental run in the United States. So thank you for what you've done. I'm so appreciative.
Can I give you a hug?
Yeah.
Get in here, David.
Woo!
Get in here. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, my name is Brett Wilcox, and David is running off to talk with Jen over here. He's our 15-year-old son, and on January 18th, we started our 6-month, 3,000-mile run across the United States. And Karen Stark here with GMO Free PA, has given us a lot of attention and a lot of thanks and a lot of love for what we've just done. And I want to just give it right back to you, Karen, because you're doing work that you're good at, going out and going to the stores, going to the restaurants, going to the government leaders, and you're doing the hard work face to face that way. And for us, maybe running 20 miles a day is easier. And so we really appreciate it. It's not a matter of us having done really anything any more extraordinary than what so many other people are doing. And we're running on the backs of people who have been doing this work for 20 years now. We just got into this movement 2 or 3 years ago, realized this was a huge, huge issue. And we talk about credentials, and people like to have big contests about who's got the biggest credentials out there and whether you have a right to speak to this issue or that issue. But I'm proud to say that my credential is credential as a father and credential as a parent. And that's the credentials that really motivates most of us consumers in America. We don't have to say this and this scientist. We're parents, and we want to make sure that we're putting food on the table that's clean and healthy and comes from sustainable resources. So I prepared a few words this morning, and this is a momentous event. We're standing on sacred ground. We're standing on really amazing ground in terms of U.S. history. We're here by Independence Hall and Liberty Bell, and that ties in really, really closely with the whole theme of genetic modification. And in the early days, the industry, the chemical companies that came out with the genetically modified foods were really proud, and they wanted to let us know that what was out there. And when Calgene came out with their Flavor Savor tomato, they said, here it is, everybody, you're going to love it. And nobody loved it. And nobody wanted to buy it because there was nothing wrong with the generations of heirloom tomatoes that we've had forever, and nobody thought there was any benefit to getting something that would stay on the shelf forever. And that was the moment, I think that was a wake-up call for the industry to realize that if they were going to get Americans to eat GMOs, they were going to have to do it with American ignorance, not with knowledge and not with forethought. Now there's enough of us who are waking up to the GMO issue that they're getting scared. They realize that they can't keep this under wraps forever. They can't keep the secret going forever. There's too many of us that know about this. The march against Monsanto is going strong. Moms Across America is going strong. The GMO Free Movement is going strong in here and in Pennsylvania and across the nation. We have labeling in over 60 countries in the world. There's other countries now that are banning GMOs. And yet the U.S. is slow to move in that direction because the chemical companies are tied so closely with the government that the government does what the chemical companies want them to do. We've all heard about the revolving door, and the people that used to work for Monsanto now work for the government and vice versa. So the biggest argument that you get from pro-GMOers is that GMOs are safe. When we get the haters online that want to attack us for what we're doing, they say, what you guys are talking about is pseudoscientists. Everybody agrees, broad scientific consensus, that GMOs are safe. GMOs are safe, GMOs are safe. And so I just want to respond to that issue today and just outline a few points to declare that GMOs aren't safe now, and they can never be safe because of what they are. So number one, GMOs are invasive species. Most invasive species replace native plants or animals. GMOs contaminate organic and conventional crops. As long as GMOs contaminate, they will continue to be dangerous. So let's not talk about GMOs being safe. If you're an organic farmer and Syngenta moves in next to you with their genetically modified crops, you are not safe as an organic farmer. So GMOs are not safe. GMOs will always contaminate the natural foods that are out there. That alone makes GMOs unsafe. Number two, GMOs are economically unsafe. The U.S. spends millions of dollars in farm subsidies to put GMOs onto the U.S. market, but other countries around the world reject GMOs. Just a year ago, when a farmer back in Oregon discovered genetically modified wheat on his farm, instantly Japan and South Korea said no thank you, not to the wheat on his farm, but to all wheat on all U.S. farms throughout the country. You couldn't come up with any recipe more unsafe than that. Just a little bit of contaminated grain, and countries close their doors entirely to an entire wheat market. I'm going to quote a little bit from my book here called We're Monsanto, Feeding the World Lie After Lie, to outline a few other points of economic devastation caused by GMO agriculture in the U.S. Quote, the 2000 release of Aventis SA's Starlink corn cost as much as $288 million in lost revenue and a year-long drop in the grain's price, according to a 2008 report by the Government Accountability Office. The 2006 release of Bayer AG's Liberty Link rice cost as much as $1.9 billion in lost exports, food recalls, and other expenses. Bayer in 2011 agreed to pay $750 million to about 11,000 U.S. rice farmers who sued the company. So economically, GMOs are a nightmare to U.S. agriculture. Every time the USDA approves a new GMO crop, it's another economic nightmare to organic and conventional farmers, as well as the farmers that adopt the crops, because there's virtually no market outside of the U.S. for those crops. Number three, chemical-based GMOs create super weeds and super bugs. Every new weed or bug gives the chemical companies a new opportunity to profit with yet another more dangerous chemical. So I work as a drug and alcohol counselor. I like to use this analogy. When a person uses a drug or alcohol for the first time, they get a super high out of it, a super charge. Lots of benefits with no liability. But as time goes on, it gets harder and harder to get those same benefits. GMO farmers, when they spray their crops with Roundup, they get a super charge the first time because it leaves their land clean and they can grow those crops and everything looks beautiful. But the more you spray that Roundup on the crops, the more it kills the soil, the more nutrient deficient the crops become, and the less quality land you've got. And so eventually you need more and more inputs, and then you need more and more Roundup or other chemicals to kill the super weeds and the super bugs. So like any drug user, we're going to come to a point in this country where we have hit rock bottom, and the farmers are going to say, okay, the chemicals aren't working. What's next? I hope we don't have to go down that road all the way to dig ourselves out from having all the agricultural land in America poisoned. Number 4, health issues. The industry loves to say over and over again that GMOs are safe, but there are numerous studies that point out all sorts of health risks, and there's numerous correlations between the introduction of GMO crops and Roundup. And all we have to do is look on the internet to see the pictures of Seralini's rats. Seralini's study was pulled for unscientific reasons, but only in the last few weeks his study was brought back and republished, and his study has been vindicated. We now know through this very heavily scrutinized scientific study that the GMO process itself and the Roundup itself causes kidney problems, liver problems, and associated with all sorts of tumors. We have much yet to learn. If the chemical companies are sincere about doing scientific studies, they won't go after scientists like Seralini and get his study retracted. They'll replicate his studies. They'll take the studies even further if they're really serious about finding out if GMOs are safe or not. Dr. Don Huber, who has more credentials than a lot of other pro-GMO scientists put together, says we've already sacrificed a generation of our children. And he says glyphosate is a pittance compared to DDT. Number 5, patents on life are an affront to our shared humanity and our place on Earth. Seeds have existed in the public domain since the beginning of time. Patented seeds turn farmers into servants of the chemical companies that own the patents. This is especially true in developing countries where farmers are not supported by farm subsidies.
Very expensive seeds with all of the licensing fees and the technology fees, and then the seeds do not perform up to the level that was promised. These farmers are in debt up to here. They are one rainstorm away from economic devastation, and we know in India that thousands of cotton farmers have committed suicide, many of them due to the introduction of GMO cotton in India. Number 6, opening the GMO door leaves open that door for GMO salmon and other animals to walk through or swim through. We live in Sitka, Alaska, where salmon are sacred. The thought that it's possible that we could introduce GMO salmon into the environment, which studies have shown them to be very aggressive, eating more than traditional salmon, showing that they could wipe out native salmon stocks. All of the problems that are associated with GMO agriculture on land would then be introduced to the sea. And we know that the chemical companies are not stopping just with soy, corn, cotton, and the others. They want to patent everything that they can. Monsanto has come out and made it clear that their goal is to patent all life so that they can control the entire food supply.
GMOs are proof that American democracy has been lost to corporate interests. Virtually every we met on the road between California and Pennsylvania opposes GMOs. Virtually everyone wants GMOs labeled or banned. Of course they want GMOs labeled so they can avoid buying them. And yet by and large, they're unresponsive to what the voters want. The government, however, actively colludes with the chemical giants to keep GMOs in the food supply. And I do want to add that we've had some huge successes since we've been on the road. Vermont recently passed their first no strings attached labeling bill. So what's the chemical company's response? Sue Vermont. So we can see that coming. It's in the works now. The counties of Josephine County and Jackson County in Oregon banned GMOs entirely from their valley. Another huge success. Hawaii continues to fight against the poisoning of their paradise. We're making good progress. There are several democracy-denying strategies that the government and the GMO industry uses. One, they lie to consumers with propaganda telling us that labeling GMOs would be a bad thing. They came in with about $45 million into California a couple of years ago with Prop 37. Weeks before that vote, virtually everyone was ready to vote for labeling. By the time the vote happened, labeling was not voted upon. Not because the people didn't want labeling, because they didn't want to pay $400 a year that it would cost to put the labels on the packages. But the $400 a year was a lie made up by the chemical company, by the PR machine. They'll do anything to make sure the labeling doesn't happen because they know labeling is a skull and crossbones to their industry. Recently, Representative Mike Pompeo out of Kansas introduced, listen to this, the Safe and Accurate Food Labeling Act of 2014. And the act is neither safe nor accurate. Opponents call this act the DARK Act, which stands for Denying Americans the Right to Know. His act would make it illegal for any state to mandate labeling in their state. It would make it possible for companies to declare GMOs to be natural. And they're attempting to, anytime we make progress on any front in the anti-GMO movement, they come in and they have strategies to compete against this. Number three, we've got right to farm amendments, which basically are constitutional amendments that give farmers the right to farm in any way they want forever, which means if they want to do CAFOs, the concentrated animal feeding operations, and they want to put those into your neighborhood or next to your school, they will have a constitutional amendment granting them the right to do that. They will have the right to grow GMOs forever, no matter what anyone else says into the future. Other democracy-denying things are the trade agreements that supersede government powers, such as the Trans-Pacific Partnership or TAFTA, the Transatlantic Free Trade Agreement. When we talk about free trade, there's nothing free trade about this. These are agreements that make it possible for the chemical companies to make as much profit as they can from their GMOs while assuming none of the liability. And number five, just this past week, members of an agricultural committee got together in Congress and declared basically that Americans are too stupid to know what to do with labeling, so it's better just not to label GMOs. So I had an internet conversation with a gentleman the other day, and I was explaining to him that GMOs offer no benefit to consumers and we don't want them. Well, he asked, what do consumers want? So this is my response. We want to buy safe, clean, natural, and healthy food. Chemical saturated GMOs do not meet those criteria. Two, we want our government to start representing their real constituents and stop representing the chemical companies. Three, we want independent science, science that is not controlled or intimidated by the bullies pushing sham biotech science. Number four, we want the regulatory agencies to do their job. We don't want to have to call up the EPA, USDA, and FDA by the millions to tell them to do the right thing. Number five, if we're going to have farm subsidies, we want those subsidies not to subsidize the most highly processed and the least healthy foods. We want the subsidies to be for our fruits and vegetables, the foods that we want to put on our table and feed our kids. Number six, we want America to once again become a land of liberty, a land of freedom, and a land of liberty. I'm just going to close by quoting the first verse to a song that we all know and love. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. You did this to me, Karen. Got to back up and start over now. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. Thank you very much.